Welcome to the Run for God Run Club, where you will find God in a runner's space.
Welcome to the Run for God Run Club. This is your one stop each week to be motivated and inspired to get off the couch and onto the running trail where you can, in turn, inspire others to do the same. Let's learn, laugh, and leap into running together, giving God the glory for what we are able to do in His name. Amen. I am your running host, Dean Thompson. Well, have you ever met one of those people who have done so much it seems like they've lived several lifetimes? Well, we're going to talk with one of those people today. He's a man that has won 10 world boxing championships. He's a rowing champion. He's a cyclist. He's a swimmer. He's, of course, a runner.
Gotta run.
He's an incredible athlete, and he is also 80 years old. And yes, he is a Christian working every day to try to share the gospel with a lost and dying world. Welcome to Run for God, John Disterdick.
Thank you, Dean. I appreciate it.
We're so glad to have you here.
Yeah, thank you.
We had lunch here not too long ago, and the more you talk, the more I couldn't stop listening. It's like your story is just so interesting. So I'm glad we're going to share it with so many others now.
Yes, thank you.
So you started exercising from when you were really young, right? I mean, this was something you've always done pretty much.
Well, actually, I came from a family in California. I was born and raised in North Hollywood, went to North Hollywood High, and my family was not sports oriented. My dad never took me to anything in sports wise. And so I really didn't get started until I left California and went to Purdue.
Okay.
And never had been in never seen a swim meet. And I became a swimmer for Purdue. And I look back, and of course, in those days, I was totally worldly, had no concept of anything spiritual. And I see how the Lord had His hand on everything that I did. Of course, I didn't know that at the time, but He just walked me through a process. And I actually initially went to Purdue and was going to try out for a walk-on football. I always liked running and being an end. So, but I tell you, the gorillas, the size of those guys that were out there, I said, I'm not going to last. I was 6'3", 165 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
So, and I was kind of, frustrated and maybe depressed a little bit, walking back through the gym and smelt the chlorine. And I was coming through and saw the pool in the gym there at Purdue, and I went over and asked the coach about what do you do to be involved in the swim team?
Yeah,
so that's how that all happened.
You got started.
Yeah, that's how I got started.
It's just you got one story after another like that. But before we go any further, let me talk about this week's podcast. Our sponsor for this week. Our sponsor this week is Smile Doctors Orthodontics. It's the best choice for braces. It's a fun and playful environment. It takes all the stress out of braces. The workers are very caring, and they work towards each patient's specific needs until they are complete. Your first consultation is free, and they'll examine exactly what needs to be done for you personally. If you're interested in getting braces, find your local Smile Doctors now and get your free consultation. Those folks have been there. We've got a local place here, and they do a great job, and they're particularly good with kids. Of course, if you're going to do braces, you need to be good with kids.
Yeah, that's true.
And they are, so they make it fun. And we cover a trivia question that we asked the week before. We're not going to do that today.
Okay.
This is going to be the John Disterdick hour, and we're gonna pass that trivia question answer off till next week. So
okay.
So all right. So John, you're living in Chattanooga now, right?
Well, probably 40% in Chattanooga and probably 60% in Windermere, Florida.
Okay. So you're back and forth.
And I love Chattanooga. I just love the city and all that it offers. So many things here. They got the rowing club right on the river there. They got great cycling places and running places. And, it's just a great venue for people that like the outdoors. I mean, Chattanooga is wonderful. But it's a little bit of a strange story. I was here about 7 years as a single adult. And I put on Memorial Day 4 years ago, I put a picture of my best friend in the military in the 82nd, a fellow named Mike Birdie, just a super guy. He had never been to California, and he and I were good friends, and he was going to come out and see California, stay with me. And so the last letter I wrote him, because our cell phones weren't in existence, how we would hook up at the LA airport and stuff.
Yeah.
And the letter came back with a big stamp on it, verified deceased.
Oh my goodness.
And it was a shame. He's just never had a chance to really get into life. So I put his picture up on my Facebook, which I hardly ever do anything on Facebook. I probably haven't been on it in 6 or 7 months as of right today.
Yeah.
Anyway, I put Mike, and I said, this is what this day is about. Please remember these people that gave everything for our country. Amen. And I got a response, and I don't even check responses, but I think the Lord was just leading me both to put it on and to look at the responses from a lady I had met in California. I was in Tennessee at the time, of course. And she was in a Bible study at Grace Community Church that I was in. And she had remembered me from the Grace Community. She had been married at the time, a couple of little girls. And we were just friends. In fact, we had a Bible study in my home in California for a few times. So that was how I got to Florida. Because she worked at Disney World for 25 years and retired. And so after we talked, I said, I'm coming out to see you, and the rest is history.
Wow.
Excuse me. Yeah. So, it's the Lord it's just amazing how he orchestrates events in our life. Just
absolutely.
And I've gone through many periods where I say, Lord, this doesn't make sense. I mean, why is this particular circumstance that I have to deal with? What good is it doing anybody? Yet
you figure it out.
Yet you learn to trust.
Yeah.
Sometimes you won't figure it out. Sometimes maybe it'll be in the next life we'll figure it out. Yeah. But but he's sovereign and he's in control.
Amen. Well, first let me thank you for your service. Certainly that's where would we be without guys like you? And so we so appreciate you and your service and all of those guys. And I'm sure I'm sure there's a number of guys that you served with who are gone and passed on now.
That's true. It is true.
Yeah. So now I like to say you kind of grew up in a foreign country. California.
Yeah, right.
So tell us, were you born in California?
Born in California, Los Angeles.
And you grew up there. You mentioned you went to high school.
Yeah, North Hollywood High School. So you didn't do sports in high school at all? No, very little. I did a little bit in junior high, and in high school I was kind of working, just to make some money and have gas money and that kind of stuff. So I did very little, because of time-wise, and I was never motivated. No one ever told me, how important and beneficial, being involved with other people in a sports activity could be. Yeah. I just didn't register.
Yeah.
Until later, of course.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot like our faith too, right? We don't know about Jesus till somebody shares it.
Yeah, that's so true. So true.
Yeah. So you went from there, and then you graduated from high school and then went to Purdue.
Yes.
So what made you go to Purdue?
My dad was an alumni.
Okay.
My aunt worked in the admissions department. Okay. And I got in on probation because I did not have the high school grades. And so they got me in on a probationary basis.
Right.
And it changed everything because I had never really... One other funny story, in high school, I forgot what locker I had because I'd put my books in a locker and never even take them out.
Oh, my goodness.
And then I forgot which locker was mine, So I just never studied. I never, the whole thing of having a book and reading it and then being tested on it was always, it was negative to me. I didn't want to do that. I didn't realize till later how important it was to take advantage of the benefits of other people and then, talking to people about the things that are available to learn. It just wasn't part of my makeup. So it totally changed when I went to Purdue. I started actually studying and reading books.
I can so identify with you. I've got a very similar story myself. Yes, I never studied in high school, didn't know how to study.
Yeah.
And I got to college.
And never taught.
Right. And when I got to college, it was like I needed to study, and I'm like, I don't know how.
Right.
And I had to learn how. And after almost flunking out in college myself, I finally I had a friend of mine who had made some good grades, and I thought, well, if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, I started sitting up front in class, and I started paying more attention and going to class.
And taking some notes.
And when you know it, I made the dean's list 5 out of the last 6 quarters I was in college.
I love it. Well, I made the dean's list my first year, which was unusual, but I just really hunkered down and started realizing it was important.
We talk all the time on this podcast about how our mind is so important.
Oh,
and we're two examples right there academically, right?
Right.
Because both of us, we just made up our mind.
Yeah.
That we're going to make good grades, and you did because you just made up your mind.
And it's that way in a lot of things.
It is.
It's that way. I have a friend that's struggling with things, and I just say, you just got to make up your mind that this is a destructive pattern of drinking like you do, and there's no, and just say, I've had enough. I'm just not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to put myself and the people I love through the trauma of this destructive habit, and it is sometimes it's just and I was that way. I remember I was a drinker in high school and afterwards, and I think I wrecked my car a couple of times. I said, this is enough. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you come to that conclusion. Now, of course, after I became a Christian, now I have the Holy Spirit that really enables me, gives me the wisdom and discernment about things and the ability, to overcome stuff that, and that's all been a wonderful blessing. Yeah. Just such a blessing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm not clear on the timeline here. So now you went to college, and then did you move right back to California?
No, I went straight into the military out of college.
Okay.
Yeah, I drove right from Purdue to to be in the military. I was at, and I ended up at Fort Bragg, which was I actually initially signed up for the Air Force. I wanted to be a fighter pilot, jet fighter. I went to the test. I think it was I forget exactly where I had to go to take the test, and I was colorblind, and I had no idea I was colorblind. Like, I can see your shirt's green and mine's yellow. I mean, I can see, but when it comes to shades, and they put the numbers on that chart, I handed their chart back and said, well, give me one with numbers. Because the numbers didn't stand out because of shades. But so at the time, I couldn't get into, pilot training, although I ended up getting my private's license later because they eased up on that stuff. So I thought, well, the next thing I'll do is jump out of a plane if I can't fly it. So I went into the airborne.
That's funny. So you're a pilot now?
Yeah, I have my license. I used to fly in California. I have not flown since I left California. Okay. I used to put my bike in there at the Van Nuys Airport and fly out to some of the little airports out in the desert and then take my bike out and do a ride,
Really?
and then fly back into Van Nuys. It was pretty interesting. And I was a member of the Beach Aero Club. It's, it was a little club there in Van Nuys Airport.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah, wow. It was neat.
I'd see it's just one layer after another with you. I'll tell you what. So you told us a story when we were having lunch that just tickled me because if I recall the story, and I may get some of the details wrong, if I do, correct me, but you had 2 classes you wanted to take, and they were offered at the same time.
Right.
Now, I coach college girls, so I see this dilemma. And, of course, there's a binary choice there, right?
Right.
You take this class, you take that class.
Right.
That's not what you did.
No. When I went to Purdue at like 17 and walked around the fountain there, I was totally by myself. It was a whole new lifestyle. I was away from everybody I knew and everything, the family and everything. And and I'm looking back now, the Lord was walking me through this. I was asking myself, what is life? I mean, what am I doing? I'm here now in Lafayette, Indiana, West Lafayette, and what the heck is life about? What is it for? Why am I even going to college? And in my own mind, I determined life was 4 things. Life was athletics, because that gives you respect, and it was something that, I always enjoyed, but I just never was a participant. Mm-hmm. Business, I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to run my own ship and my own destiny. It was education, because you had to know the rules. So education became important, which lies into your question. And then lastly, the 4th thing was entertainment. I'm from Hollywood. You got music and in the film business is where, of course, at my age, it was where's the money and where are the girls, and that's what was uppermost on my mind, So in the educational thing, which is kind of goes to your question, I got through Purdue as an engineer, and then I went back after the military and back to California. I got my MBA from Pepperdine. And I was wanting to I wanted to understand accounting, because that's kind of the language of business. I wanted to know accounting. I wanted to know business. So, and then I went to law school. And another quick interlude there is I found the smartest person in the class, and I would pay them to tutor me, because during class, a lot of times I was doing things that I had to do for my business, So it was crazy time. But your question was, at UCLA had a course on accounting and they had a course on business, and they were both the same hour. And I wanted to get the business certificate and the accounting certificate. And I didn't want to wait the length of time it would take to do them, in sequence. So I took them both
at the same time.
Then I'd leave at the intermission and go with the other one. It was a crazy time in life, but that's what I was doing.
Well, that's we say all the time, that sometimes you got to look outside the box and do something a little differently, and a lot of times you get success from that. And this was really kind of a good example of it.
It was interesting.
Yeah. Well, when we come back, we'll talk more about this Hollywood thing. So don't go away.
As a mom, I want to make sure we choose a cereal that's not entirely derived from sugar. Their car seats have to be nationally CPS certified, and their first car has to have every possible safety feature known to man. I just want to do my best to make sure that they're safe. One thing I don't have to worry about is the content they hear on J Radio. Not only do they love the music, but I know it's only going to be a positive message that I would approve of. Now, if I could just figure out how to get my youngest from sticking everything up his nose.
Sign up at jradio.com and download the new J Radio app in your app store.
All right, we're back. Now, you were talking about being in your Hollywood guy,
right?
And so you wanted a little bit of the fame and all that.
I wanted to win an Oscar. I was after I wanted to be in the big films, big screen, all that stuff.
You were so close you could smell it, right?
Yeah, right.
And so tell us about that part of your life.
Well, in that part of your life, you have to have an agent. So I obtained an agent, and they do a bunch of photos, and then you go out on these calls, and you have both sometimes it's a theatrical agent and a commercial agent, because they're different genres. So I had a really good commercial agent, Cunningham and Sutton, Barth, and Venari. I don't even think they exist any longer, but I would, go out to do commercials. And I was very successful in that arena. I got 46 commercials. I think
Oh, wow.
About a third of them were nationals. So, you know, and of course, a lot of people like to do commercials because they really make a lot of money. You know, you just sit home and just collect checks because every time it plays, and if it's on a national basis, you know, you get residuals. And so it's a big moneymaker. And then I had a theatrical agent for quite a while, and I did a series, a Hunter series for a while. I had a spot on the Hunter series, and then some big screen films, you know, the Champion and Gridiron Gang, and I forget a couple of, you know, just several but I never did do what I had my heart set on, which is probably better because the Lord hadn't gotten a hold of me to the point he has today. Yeah. So who knows what would have happened,
right.
had I had the success I was driving for.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I met a lot of people. In fact, that's where I met a stunt man on one of my, in fact, a Remington shaver commercial, a stunt man named Sonny Shields. Very interesting guy. Well, Sonny had a son named Randy Shields, and Randy Shields was a welterweight boxer. Well, he boxed in several divisions. He's in the Hall of Fame, and Sonny invited me over to their house to, and in the Army in the 82nd, my sergeant was a boxer, and I just had heard some of the potential problems you might have. I wanted as much ability as I could obtain in case whatever happened. So I started in the Army, and then when I got out of the Army and went back and was doing television work, I met Sonny Shields and then his son, Randy Shields, who's a great, great guy, great champion. And so I trained Randy for like 6 years in boxing until he started hitting so hard. I just said, this is enough for me. And he went on as a pro, as many people know. But it was that beginning that about 25 years later, I was trying to become the master athlete. There was a Master Athlete magazine, and I think at one time it was called Geezer Jock. And it was, I wanted to try and get that title because I was working on trying to put together a TV show on this whole concept.
Okay.
So, and it wasn't like any one sport I was just, really predominant. It was because I did a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So I saw the cover of the Master Athlete magazine had a master boxer on it. And so I found out that they had the World Master Boxing events in Kansas City, and there's like 12 countries that would show up. It's the biggest event in the world for amateur master boxers.
Yeah. So
that's how I got involved in that, and I was just hoping to, place in the top 3 or something, and I ended up going there 10 years, and had a great run. The Lord
won every year.
Won every year. So
undefeated, is that what I understand?
Yeah, I was undefeated.
Oh my goodness.
So in fact, this Sunday they've been trying to put together the Hall of Fame. I've been in the Hall of Fame for some time, but they're actually doing the ceremony here in Chattanooga this Sunday. It was going to be in Boston, then it was going to be in Texas, then it was going to be in Las Vegas, and all the COVID and everything, crazy stuff happened. So it's going to be, it's happening now. So,
well, for the boxing Hall of Fame.
Yeah, for the boxing Hall of Fame.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Wow, that's yeah. I watched a couple of. I think you've got a boxing match online, and I watched.
Yeah, there are several of them out there.
I don't know what age you were at those videos, but you're pretty quick.
Yes,
especially for an older guy.
Yeah,
my goodness.
And luckily they. They changed it all for master boxing because people would come from other countries and they didn't want to have a weight class to where, you had to be 178 to be a light heavy or something. And if you're 177, so they made it whatever you come in and register at, you can fight someone 10 pounds up or 10 pounds down. Okay. And you can fight someone age-wise 10 years up or 10 years down so that they could match. Right. They let go of the welterweight and light heavy and heavy and all that stuff. And I think they still do that today, but it allowed matches to be made with almost everyone that showed up. Yeah. So that's how that, that went on. The first year they didn't do that, but every other year they did.
Yeah. I just can't, of course I'm a runner and I've been a runner my whole life. That's, I've played other sports and I love other sports, but I'm a runner. I can't imagine getting into a ring with a guy that wants to hit me. I just, it's foreign to me. But I get it.
Yeah.
And you had some great success in it. That's pretty cool. Okay. So this idea of being this well-rounded athlete, you mentioned you mentioned the swimming in college, right?
Right.
So, You just saw somebody swimming and you just thought, that looks like something I could do?
Yeah, and it's a funny thing that, looking back, no question the Lord just orchestrated these things. When I took a train into Chicago and then a little puddle jumper into Lafayette, Indiana, the guy I sat next to became my best friend in college, Bob Enpine, and he was there on a scholarship for swimming. And I was just talking to Bob last week, and he lives out in Sacramento, just a super guy.
Yeah.
So when it was Coach Pappenguth at the time, he was the coach at Purdue. He asked me, and when I told him I was from California, he kind of lit up and thought, oh my gosh, California's got good swimmers, So he had me swim a couple of lengths of the pool, which I could barely make. And he basically said, appreciate your interest, but we're pretty full.
Yeah.
And Bob, who I'd met, was also a lifeguard as part of his scholarship thing. So Bob said, hey, look, come over, I'll work with you, and we'll see what happens. And so Bob did, and we swam every meet all 4 years, and he and I were co-captains of the team in our senior year. Wow. So it was a great story,
Obviously, you had some fairly natural ability.
Yeah, I think the Lord had given me certain, abilities. I was, like I say, 6'3".
That helps a lot in swimming.
Yeah, it helps that I had decent strength, so it was just learning the technique, because swimming is so much technique.
Yeah,
so much technique.
Yeah. And that's why I'm bad at it.
Yeah, it's a killer when you have not done it, and you lift your head too high and your butt sinks and you're just fighting most people fight their way through the water and spend 10 times the energy someone that knows how to swim just cruises through.
That's me.
Yeah.
That's me. I call it controlled drowning.
Yeah, really.
So you did the swimming in college, and you eventually got into triathlon.
Yeah, in the military, I was a skydiver. I was on the 82nd skydiving team, so I was doing that. And then I went to the 3rd Army track because I loved to run too.
Yeah.
So I ran in the 3rd Army track, and I actually did the high jump. And I have an article where I actually won the high jump at 6'1". And now when I go to the Senior Olympics, I try and do 4 feet, so
wow.
You just got to you just got to adjust to what life brings. But when I got out of the military and came back to California, I've always been a speed nut. I love fast cars, fast boats.
Yeah.
And I had an opportunity, again, the Lord just opened the door. I bought this flat bottom, blown Hemi boat, which the guy that had built it owned an auto store, and he passed away, and his widow was somehow related to us. I can't even remember how. But anyway, I bought this boat, which was a 100-mile-an-hour boat. It's
my goodness.
They're just crazy. And we used to go to the Colorado River and Lake Mead and Lake Havasu, and we were up at, I think, Lake Havasu, just racing around. We'd go there all the time from California. And I saw this boat just flying by with this guy skiing behind it, way behind the boat. It's on basically a 200-foot line instead of normally they're 75 to 100 feet lines.
Yeah.
It was 200 feet. And I followed him just to find out what the heck is this guy doing. And I met him. His name was Bud Moravis, just a super guy. He and I became partners in speed skiing. And he had a Campbell boat with 2 L88 Chevys freight trained, back to back, 1,600 horsepower. This boat was, I was clocked at 108 miles an hour skiing in Lake Havasu behind that boat. But so for 6 years, and we would race from Long Beach to Catalina Island and back, which was quite a trip.
Wow.
And did that for 6 years, and then raced, and then the nationals were usually at San Diego. Well, quite a few of them were San Diego at Mission Bay.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting sport, very scary, because it used to be you come up to the starting line, you sink down 200 feet back, and the boat throws the flag, and the pedals to the metal on those boats, and they're fast boats, 600, 700, 800 horsepower, and you're just flying down that first straightaway trying to position into the turn. And if you fall, I fell once about 90, and you just broke your eardrum, and
I can't imagine. It's like hitting concrete.
Yeah, you bounce quite a bit, and and you have suicide bindings on your ski. It's a special ski just for speed skiing, and you have to have someone help you get it on. You just get in it, and then you strap across it, and it's pretty interesting. In fact, you'll have to send you a picture of it.
Yeah.
Well,
sure.
I thought I had a picture of it in the front of the other magazine, but that's a picture of it.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a special ski, and But so that was just being involved in that activity. I finally won the nationals in 1976 in San Diego. And then I got then I met a guy. I met a guy, Jim Gayton. Who was a triathlete, and he was a cycling champion. He and his wife were both champions. And so I started talking to him, and that's how I got interested in the whole triathlon, swim, bike, run,
Which was very young.
It was totally young.
It was pretty new.
Yeah, it was pretty new sport. And in fact, we started the first governing body for the sport. I have the first card ever issued to a triathlete.
USAT.
It was United States. At Triathlon Association, and that conflicted with the United States Tennis Association, USTA. So it was changed to TriFed, and now it's USA Triathlon. But so I got involved in that sport, and of course Hawaii was always the big thing. So I trained and went to Hawaii to the Ironman.
Wow.
And that was exciting.
Yeah.
It was quite an event. Went there twice.
It's an incredible event. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for people out there listening, if you're a triathlete, you have a USAT card.
Right.
And if you have a card, that card has a member number on it.
Right.
And I've got one of those cards, and I've got a member number, but your card says number 1.
Well, it was. Now that they changed the names and everything, those cards went away. But
you were number 1.
And it's they have a picture of it in the magazine. One of the magazines. I still have it, and in fact, I sent the original to the.
I saw a picture of it somewhere. I was looking.
Yeah. I sent it into archives or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's pretty. That's a pretty special thing. For most people, they'd be like, "Yeah, I did this thing where I basically started the triathlon world with the governing body that governs just about all triathlons these days." And for you, it's a side note. It's just something you happen to do.
Yeah, I had the office in Burbank, California. I had attorneys on staff, so we just set up the whole thing, and we had computer even at that time. So we started setting up, the original listing of all the people and how to get in touch with them. In fact, we also. Because we were an investment company, we raised the money for the first magazine called Triathlete.
Okay.
No, called Triathlon. Now it's Triathlete. So Triathlon magazine, we started that back in the day.
Man, my goodness. So, at what point did you? How old were you at this point where you're getting to this point where you're doing a little bit of everything, exercise wise?
Yeah, it started, I guess. I would be in my 40s when I just felt like I think I was ADSD or whatever they call it. I never was diagnosed with, but I was always liking to do diverse stuff. I never could concentrate really heavily on one thing very easily.
I'm familiar with that.
So I think it goes with the territory. So. I always had different things. I'd do weights one day and bike another day and run the third day and swim. I always liked the diverse training.
Yeah.
It just was something that I gravitated towards. And then when I began to hear about the Senior Olympics, which I really didn't even know existed, that I started, and since I was going anyway, I would start doing track and field. I did the cycling and I did the swimming. And if they had a triathlon, which not all of them do, but the Nationals has the triathlon, but not the states.
Yeah.
I started doing the track and field stuff. You know, of course, I did the running, and then I started doing the high jump and the broad jump and the triple jump and the discus and the shot put. You know, you just start doing them.
Yeah.
You're there anyway. We might as well do it.
Well, I go to the USATF national championships for masters.
I just
a little bit different.
I just went to the decathlon.
Okay, you went to the decathlon one. Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to go to the one that I think you went to.
Yeah.
And I had a conflict and couldn't get to it. That's what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And then I the only other event I saw was in Missouri, was the decathlon. So I decided I'd go ahead and do it. And I'd never done a decathlon. I'd never done a pole vault in my life. So I learned, you know, a lady there was real nice and kind of showed me a few things. And the first time I tried it, I put the pole in, went off to the side, the stand that holds it up. I went into it, banged it over, kind of scratched up my back and had a little bump on my head. So, you know, I had a rough start, but
you kept at it.
Kept at it, and she showed me, and I never did get very high, but I got, but I did it.
Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy. And I've seen those guys do the, you know, guys. I mean, I think the pole vault looks interesting to me. That is an event that does look interesting to me, but it's so complicated.
Yeah. Now, of course, I could never, you know, grab the bar and get my legs up over my head, that kind of thing. I just go sideways and do the best. You know, I just, you know, because it's just too late in my life to try and learn that.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. But what I was going to say is I've heard one time, and it's turned out to be true, that if you want to win in some of these master athlete events, just outlive your opponent. And the two guys who were in my group, both of them were injured, and so I ended up being the only one that finished.
There is some truth to that. Yeah. Although I had an occurrence this year where I went to and I ran the steeplechase, and I won the steeplechase, and then I ran the 1,500 meters. Well, I'm in the 55 to 59 age group. Okay.
That's a tough age group, you know.
In the 50 to 54 age group, the guy that finished 12th, I think, in our race would have finished third in the 50 to 54 age group. That doesn't make any sense.
No, I know what you're saying.
But sometimes, like you said, it's a matter of who shows up.
It is.
And
then those ages are tough. They're very competitive.
Yeah,
I think you get above 75 and it starts slowing down.
Yeah.
You hit the 80 and, you know.
It gets tough. It gets a lot tougher. The older you get, the tougher it gets. I admire you for just getting out there and doing it. So we have people who they struggle with the mental side of just getting out there and doing it every day. Yeah. And you mentioned how much you just enjoy doing it. So how do you orient your brain to a point where you want to get out there and do the exercise, even when it's hot outside or, you know, whatever the circumstances are that makes it hard to overcome?
Yeah, I think for me, it's been a couple of things. One thing is, for probably the last 15 years, every day I write down in my little calendar what I did that day physically. And sometimes I'll put a big 0 in there. I just don't want to put a bunch of zeros. You know, I don't like that. So the other day, I didn't feel that good. I don't know what it was. I just, you know, didn't feel that good. And I was going over to the boxing gym to talk about this event we have coming up. And I said, well, I'll just sit on the rowing machine. We have one there, and just do a little. And I ended up, you know, doing 2,500 meters. Because if I start a little bit, and knowing that I want to write something down helps me. Yeah. It just helps me to, and then signing up for events. You know, I'm signed up for the Huntsman. I leave next month, and that's in Utah. There'll be 12,000 competitors. It's the biggest Masters event, I think, in the country. Wow. It's huge. It's even bigger than the National Senior Olympics. And it's in.
So what is the Huntsman?
It's in the St. George, Utah. They've got huge amount of events. It's really well done. It's an incredible.
So it's different events. It's
all kinds of different events. And last year was the first year I've ever been there. So I've got 22 events, track and field. I got 9 swimming, track and field, triathlon. So we're there a couple of weeks. And of course, my mission is to talk to people about how, whatever the event is, running, swimming, triathlons, whatever it is, how it's enhanced their quality of life.
Yeah.
What's it's meant to them. And then, of course, the biggest desire is, what is your belief system? What drives you, And we just pray that the Lord will open up doors for people to give their little story of how they walk with the Lord, what it means, because that's the most important thing to me with whatever years the Lord provides for me.
Yeah.
If I can be a tool that he can use to promote his truths in his kingdom, I couldn't ask for anything better. There isn't a medal, or award, a position that I could even think of that would replace the opportunity to be a vessel. Yeah. And so that's, as long as he gives us the ability, my wife and I will continue to travel and meet people and talk about this. And we've gotten some great testimonies from some people. And if we don't, which happens a lot, then we have our testimony, linked into there so that people can hear the truth of the gospel.
Yeah.
And that's our whole passion. I mean, that's what we live for.
That's awesome.
And that's been a process. I mean, I came to the Lord slowly. I came to the point where I knew had a music business with Mike Nesmith of the Monkees, who's since passed away. He was a Christian Scientist, and we used to race motorcycles out in Palm Springs. A guy named Skip Van Leeuwen.
Let's hold that.
Okay.
We're going to come back to that. I want to talk about that one specifically.
Okay.
So let us take just a break,
All
and
right,
then we'll come
let's do
right
it.
back.
At Run for God, we care about more than just your exercise. We care about your relationship with God, and we believe that the music you listen to while you run can help you build your relationship with God. That's why we partner with J Radio. J Radio offers a variety of positive and Christian playlists to listen to while you run. You can find a playlist that I put together on the Run for God station on J Radio.
All right, we're back, and I paused because this story is just fantastic. I love it. You mentioned kind of how you were starting down that road of how you came to faith.
Yes.
And it is a wonderful story because so many of us grow up and our parents basically say, here's what you believe. Mm-hmm. And you didn't have that.
No.
You went out and searched for it yourself. So let's go ahead and start this. Let's go into this story and tell them how that happened.
Okay. Well, at the time, too, I was doing television commercials. I was running my business. I was going to bars with my friends. We had different places we went just about every night. We'd take off on the weekends with our boats to the Colorado River or Lake Mead and go into Vegas or whatever we were doing. So life was full, but I had realized through some chain of events that I'd never even thought about the spiritual side of life. But I knew it had some kind of power. One reason I knew is we had a motorcycle accident out in Palm Springs, and Mike Nesmith, who was the Monkee, the guitar player, was a Christian Science, and a practitioner came up to our studio. And I don't know what she did, but I couldn't hold my head on, the weight of my head on my shoulders and neck and things was painful to where I'd have to lay down and just take the weight off.
Yeah.
And she did whatever she did, and I all of a sudden didn't have the pain. And so I said, wow, that's powerful. Yeah. So I used to go to a Christian Science reading room, they call them, and read Mary Baker Eddy's Science and Health and Key to the Scriptures.
Wow.
Which also talked about certain Bible verses. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, millions of people can't be wrong, so there must be some kernel of truth in everything. And my job is to find that kernel of truth so that I can apply it to get what I want out of life. That was kind of my, why not?
Selfish reasons, really.
Selfish.
Yeah.
Egotistical and everything else. So I read the Book of Mormon, The Pearl of Great Price, and Quran, and chanted Yam Yaho Ringa Kyo with a group of actors, periodically in this candlelit thing. L. Ron Hubbard Scientology, the Buddhists. So it just started down a trail that took me a lot of time, quite a few years of studying that stuff, trying to figure out, what's the kernel, what's the truth in these that I can glean. And at one event, I was over at my sister's, and one of her friends, I can't even remember who it was, said, you ought to go over to Grace Community Church, which it wasn't far away, Panorama City, and learn. John MacArthur was the pastor. And so I said, yeah, I know it. My feeling was it had no real relevance to my life, but it would be good to find out where the Bible fits into all this stuff. Mm-hmm. So I went over there and I listened to John and was amazed by him and how he brought in history and so many things into his teaching of biblical truths. And it just so happened that they were starting a Logos Bible Institute class, the first one they'd ever had there at the church. And I thought, well, I'll just sign up and go to that. And so I can, get a quick introduction. And my first question at the first class is, why is there an old and a new? What's this? There must be some significance to that. That was my level of understanding.
Yeah.
And through time, I learned about spiritual warfare. I had no concept at first when I started learning about that, I thought this is la la land. This is just a little too far out. But through just so many events, it became so obvious to me that these other things that I was pursuing were demonic. They were, I hate that, I wish that it wasn't true. I wish that everybody could get to God through their own little channel.
Yeah.
But Jesus Christ said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father but through me. There's no plan B. It's only one way.
That's right.
And, that's the way it is. I don't make up the rules. So, and it was a challenge for me, but it became so apparent and so true that was the process that I went through, and it's been a lifelong quest. I mean, I've read the Bible cover to cover about 30, I think I'm on my 35th time. Wow. And you're always learning and new applications and understandings, asking God to help me to, really glean what he wants me out of the scriptures that I'm reading.
Well, the idea that the Bible is living and breathing is a real thing.
It is.
Yeah. And it's hard for somebody who's not a Christian to understand that.
Because I lived that. It was hard for me, and I don't forget those, times when someone talked about spiritual warfare and demonic forces and it's real. It's real.
It is.
And it's sad. It's almost, I heard one time, there's people that are in the game. There's people that are watching the game, and there's people that don't even know the game's going on, and if you don't even know you're in a warfare, you're so susceptible to being deceived and defeated by the enemy. And I think so much of, I don't know, America, but probably worldwide, people just don't know they're in a spiritual warfare. There are forces that want to kill, steal, and destroy. And so they don't have the weapons, to deal with those things, and it just saddens me. And of course, I used to, when I was reading the Bible, think, how stupid can these Israelites be when they see all these things, and Moses brings them out of, Egypt and parts the sea and does all these incredible things. How can they be so crazy to start being Baal worshipers and Asheroth poles and all? How can they be that dumb? And then I look at America.
Yeah.
And it's only been a couple of 100 years.
Yeah.
And the foundation upon which we have been based is being denied. And what we have done in this country it just saddens me. But one of the beautiful things about the Christian life that I really didn't even fully comprehend is that you can have a peace that surpasses understanding no matter what the circumstances. So I don't like what's happening to our country, but I know God's sovereign. I know the end. You know, He tells us the end in the book of Revelation. So it's gonna come to an end.
Yeah.
So, and it's gonna go the way He has predetermined it. So I can rest in that, even though I don't like what I see and experience.
He's definitely not surprised by any of it.
No.
And and
I am. But
yeah. But and you mentioned the Israelites, and the truth is that for all of us individually, we all have had those moments. All Christians
Absolutely.
have had that moment where, you know, God was just so real and so and did such an amazing thing in your life.
Right.
And then tomorrow
doubts comes in.
Doubts, and we just forget about that thing that happened yesterday, just like the Israelites.
That's
did.
me too.
So
I walk that walk.
Yeah. I was just telling my wife the other day, I said, I've looked back at Sodom and Gomorrah, and I thought, how in the world could a society get like that?
Yeah.
And then you look around and you're like,
oh my gosh,
I can see how it would get like that.
Yeah.
Right. So
it sure can.
Yeah, it's really scary, the direction that we're headed in. But you make a good point, and that is that two things, I think. First of all, we need to realize He is in control,
right?
No matter what else is going on,
right?
But also we have a job to do, right?
Exactly.
And that's part of what you guys are doing with these videos. You're going around the country,
right?
And you're videoing people and giving their testimonies and various things. And the idea is to share that with people who need to hear it, right?
Exactly. And we had a lady in the Sarasota, Florida, in the Masters World Rowing, and she was the coxsman for this group of rowers, and she came in kind of at the end, and because we asked them about their spiritual direction, and they said, well, we better bring her in, and she kind of gave a little testimony of how the Lord is really, paramount in her life, and she'd never done that before. She's been contacting us now for a number of weeks about how that just changed her whole outlook about, her faith and speaking out for the Lord. And, so we have some really just encouraging people that we run into in these places. And I just want others to know the truth, to set them free. I mean, we live in such a turbulent time with so many things that create the frustrations and anxiety and difficulties, and if they could just hone in on the truth that sets people free and understand Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, and the Bible is a living, like you said, document that they can guide and direct their paths, and they're not going to get away from frustrations. They're not going to get, we just buried one of my nephews, a 33-year-old kid out of New York, killed in a motorcycle accident, who was a physician's assistant, just a great little kid, my son's best friend. And, he said, God, why on earth is that little, good Christian boy, why on earth did he have to be taken at such a young age? He was planning his marriage and stuff. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I know that I trust the sovereign God of the universe. This life is fleeting, short. I'm amazed I'm as healthy as I am, at my age. But we can have peace and contentment no matter what the circumstances. Not that we aren't going to be impacted by life's traumas and vicissitudes, I guess they call them, but we can have victory over that. And there's no other way except through Christ and the Holy Spirit. I mean, there isn't any other answer. There's no plan B.
Yeah.
So we just want more and more people to know that.
Right, right. Well, God bless what you're doing. And if you're out there and you're listening to this and you happened on this podcast and you just happen to be here just because you wanted to hear a story, you can go to runforgod.com/peace with God. There are 4 videos there that you can go through those videos, and they will very clearly talk exactly about what John is talking about here and how you can have that peace. And so I would encourage anybody out here that has any doubts whatsoever to go to the Run for God page, go to Peace with God, and or Steps to Peace, and get an understanding of what that's all about, because
nothing's more important in the whole world. I mean, there's nothing that's more important than your relationship with Jesus Christ.
That's right.
Just, you know, we just get passionate about wanting people to know. We want them to be free. We want them to be set free.
And that's where the world is telling them that freedom looks different.
Oh, absolutely.
Than what real freedom is.
Absolutely.
And that's unfortunate. It's something that we have to consistently strive against. That's part of the toil that we have in this world.
It is.
But you know what? There's blessings on the other end of that. And you just talked about a lady whose life has changed. And now the fact that her life has changed because of what you guys are doing has just really buttressed your faith as well.
Right? It does. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's also important that we do continue to work against those evil thoughts.
Well, meeting you and having this opportunity it is also, increases and gives me more encouragement, at the whole thing of what you're doing, running for God, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and there's a bunch of folks out there listening, I'm sure, who are, I call myself the old guy, and next to you, I'm a young guy.
You're a young guy.
So so I hope we encourage some folks out there who maybe you're out there and you've gotten kind of up in age and you're concerned. You don't have to quit living life.
No,
God's still got a plan for you.
Absolutely,
for sure. So, all right. So a few other things that I want to clean up here. You've won over 400 medals, I think I read, in various events through the Senior Olympics. That number is staggering.
Yeah, the Lord has been gracious. I've been going to the West Side Housing Project in Chattanooga, Tennessee, every week. Not as much now that I spend so much time in Florida, but I take those medals and give them to the kids.
You really? Yeah. That's awesome.
And little kids like little medals, Yeah. And it's been a pleasure to put on the back of it. God is. What did I put on the back? God bless you. I think I put on there, and then just write my name.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. And you're in the Tennessee Hall of Fame, Sports Hall of Fame, I guess.
Yeah, I'm in the Chattanooga, and I'm in the Tennessee Senior Olympics Hall of Fame.
That's pretty cool. And so you mentioned all these other sports, but with all of that, on your 80th birthday, which was back in March.
Yeah.
In March, you turned 80 and you decided you were going to do something just a little non-traditional for your birthday. So explain to us what you did on your birthday.
Yeah, I actually was talking to Bob LaBelle over at Come On, Let's Go, and I wanted to create a fundraiser, and I'm a staunch believer in testimonies. I love testimonies.
Amen.
And listen to people, their life stories and how they came to Christ and what it's meant to them and the struggles they've had to endure. So on my 80th birthday, we set up a little GoFundMe page for Come On, Let's Go. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Bob said they had like 4 million hits in that, a lot of people that are considering suicide and that kind of thing. It's been a blessing for people to be able to just be encouraged and be and be changed by what they hear other people, stories.
Yeah.
So that was, and the idea was, well, let's just try and do as many events on that day as I can. So actually, I was going to row an 8K, but the water on the river was so high that I ended up doing it on the erg indoors instead of on the water. But I was going to do it on the water, and then I did a bike of 80, and so I went and I broke these up into 4 different times, up to the dam and back from from the rowing club here in Chattanooga.
Yeah.
So, and then I ran an 8K. I swam 800 meters. I did 800 sit-ups, 80 push-ups, and then went over to the boxing gym and did 8 rounds of sparring with my real good friend Dale Dagnan, who trains a lot of the Guns and Hoses that comes up here in Chattanooga every year.
Yeah.
So, and he's my main sparring partner for almost all my belts, so that it was just it took a little over 13 hours, and it was a long day.
Yeah.
Had a few cramps that night.
I bet.
But the whole thing was just to, raise awareness and money for Come On, Let's Go.
Come On, Let's Go. That's awesome. And what a great way to spend your 80th birthday too.
It was.
God bless you for continuing to do those things, because, a lot of people, as they get older and things get harder, and I'm sure for you, just as they have for me, it's gotten harder,
Absolutely.
to get out and do that stuff. But if you'll just keep putting one foot in front of the other, you can keep doing it.
Right. Just trust the Lord and do as best you can. Like I said, I jumped 6'1" in the military. Now I can't even do 4 feet. I tried it. So you just have to adjust. I ran a 5K in 15:24 back when I was 40. Before I went to the Ironman Hawaii, and now, I mean, it's maybe 30 minutes,
Yeah.
But you just do it. You just keep, do the best you can with, what your situation is. And, you're never too old to start something, to do. And by the way, I think I mentioned, we've done quite a few rowing shows, and we did Oak Ridge Masters rowing, and it surprised me. I met 2 of the rowers, never started rowing till they were in their 70s, which totally surprised me, because I thought I was really old in my 50s to start.
Yeah.
And they hadn't started till their 70s. So, there are events and things that, even if it's just walking, if assuming you're able,
We've got a number of run club folks who have started. We've had 80-year-olds who have started running or walking when they're 80.
Yeah.
And so, you're right. It's never too late. And I know. Let me. Here's another question for you. I know you gave this to us. It's called Consider the Odds, and I love it because I like facts, figures. I like logic.
Yeah.
I'm a big on the logical stuff. And that's what this is.
Yeah.
This is a little booklet that says, this is why God exists. This is how we know that God exists, because the odds of him not existing are way greater than the odds of him existing, right?
Exactly.
And it's just awesome. And so you find time to do all these things, right? And we've talked about a whole bunch of stuff here. And we have a lot of folks. I get messages all the time from Run Club folks that said, I haven't run in 2 weeks because I didn't have the time.
Yeah.
And the truth is, and I tell people this all the time, that presidents of the United States have found time to run. Mm-hmm. And so we all have the time.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of prioritizing and doing it. And so how, with such a busy life that you've had over all these years, how do you have tricks, tips for folks on how to find time to get it in?
Well, interesting question. I'm 80, as you said, and these are the best years of my life. I've never had better years. My wife and I talk about it quite often. I mean, our kids, we've gone through the education, we've gone through the business scenario, we've pursued the things that we thought, were important to us. We've had our children, our families have grown, they're doing well. And you're not under the pressure of getting to the job or figuring out what to do with the kids and their events and stuff. It's just a beautiful time. So I actually have more time now, as I am not pressured to get something accomplished. Am I going to go down and row today, or do I want to get on my bike, or maybe I'll wait and run, or I'll go over to the Y and swim. I just contemplate, well, I think today I'll just go over to the Y and swim. It's like There's no pressure. There's no, well, I only got an hour and a half, what am I going to do? So these years, and I hope everyone that's listening can enjoy these years, get to these years, because to me, they've been the best years of my life.
Yeah.
And however many the Lord gives me, I don't know. I know it's going to be better on the other side. So,
Amen.
So, whatever I like I said earlier, I mean, if I can somehow be a vessel for His truths and His kingdom, I can't think of anything more important or better that I would want to do. And all the things that I used to strive for. I mean, I wanted to be a billionaire, and I wanted to be, win an Oscar for best actor, and I wanted all these different things that I set out as a young kid. Mean nothing to me, I mean, which I'm glad about.
Amen.
I only want to serve Him. What else matters, really?
Amen.
What else matters? And so, He's given me a ministry and given me the ability, and a wife who wants to do the same thing. And I couldn't be more blessed.
That's awesome. That's an awesome testimony. So let me ask you a question, because this is interesting to me personally, because 2 years ago, I changed my diet to a plant-based diet. What does your diet look like?
I've thought about those things and never have, adjusted to just, we just eat whatever we feel like. We do a lot of salmon, and we cook at home.
So relatively healthy stuff.
Healthy stuff. We try. There's a couple of Italian restaurants near us, and we get the chicken marsala, or we get veggie burgers at BurgerFi or whatever, and so we just, it's not, and I sometimes make protein shakes, but it's never been anything that I've been really adamant about. At this point, I mean, I've thought that it'd probably be a good idea, just and what you're doing is a good idea, but I just it's not been part of my life yet. Maybe it will be.
Well, it turned out to be the best thing for me, but I'm a big believer that what's good for everybody's different. Yeah. And so you seem to be doing pretty well with what you're doing.
It's crazy how the body, I mean, one guy can be bit by a bee and die, and you and I can, brush it off. What's going on chemically that would cause something like that? So the bodies are just different. Yeah. And we react different. I mean, alcohol, and some people just tears them one into the other. Another person can have a few drinks, laugh and go home. Another person becomes a maniac. You're right. You just have to learn, like you say, you have to learn what's right for you, I think. Yeah. Trust the Lord will reveal it to you.
Amen. Well, do you have any, let me do this. We always leave everybody with a motivational thought of the week, but I want to ask you one more question after that. So our motivational thought of the week this week is, you can't help getting older, but you don't have to get old.
That's great.
George Burns said
that. I like that. Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in that. My wife and I we're all the time talking and looking around at grandkids and stuff and going, it's really weird how everybody else gets older, but we don't. And I'm a firm believer in that.
I am too.
Yeah. So tell me, is there a website that people can go to? What is that?
Yes, there. I did a lot of film work for a lady out of Atlanta, Sue Ann Taylor, who's done a lot of major documentaries around the country, and she started a site called NUYU.com. It's a network, and she gave me a channel on that network just because we were friends, and so Redefining Aging became a channel. Okay. But it's a subscription thing where you have to pay, I think, $10 a month or something. So we've wanted to make our stuff free, to people, not have to subscribe. So we're in the process of setting up redefiningaging.us. Okay. So that people can come and listen to stories. It isn't done yet. There are some shows up there, but we want to have it to where people want to know about heart issues or weight issues or diabetic or something, they'll be able to listen to people that have fought through some of those things. Yeah. So that's hopefully going to be by the end of this year. We'll have a lot of that, those kinks. Although it is operating today, it's we have to
it's
get
incomplete. Right
incomplete.
Now. Yeah.
And then there's my own JohnDisterdick.com, just my own site that has the Consider the Odds brochure on there. People could print it off or whatever.
Yeah.
And other things, just a little bit of stuff, from my own life that's up on there, spiritual things. It has my testimony on there. It's a long, 24-minute testimony of, how my life has unfolded. But, if people want to, visit any of those sites, love to have them. And then we're going to encourage people to, on the redefiningaging.us, people to tell us, what event should we come to? Because I do all the events, whatever it is, I'll do my best. And then who to interview. If they know an event that would be good or a person that we should, tell us. Yeah. So that we can, get it in our schedule and accomplish that for other people.
So if you got ideas out there, then hit John up. Go to one of those two websites and. John, it's been such a joy. First of all, just to get to know you.
It's a pleasure.
And what a great story. And I think I told you before we went live, my girls, I run with my team.
Right.
They get tired of hearing about me talking, telling stories and stuff. But after we had lunch, they know your name. I'll just put it that way. So I appreciate you sharing with us and sharing with everybody on the Run for God web podcast, because we got a lot of folks out there who are, like I said, our average age is older than you might think.
Okay.
And so a lot of folks need to hear that as you get older, you don't have to stop. Right. You might have to slow down.
Yeah.
And you might not have to be able to jump as high.
Right.
But you don't have to stop.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So everybody keep it up. And thanks again for being here.
Thank you. And I would just say, to encourage people, we have an enemy. And you'll maybe get started and say, oh, gosh, I'll maybe start reading the Bible or something, and I'll pray. And you pray for this, that, or the other thing that seems good to you, and it doesn't happen. And you say, well, God doesn't hear my prayer. And this Bible, it just doesn't seem to, really light my fire. I'm not really understanding a lot. Those are part of the process. I mean, don't get discouraged about things that happen in life. Just pray that the Holy Spirit will make himself known to you. And then when whatever you go to in the Bible to read or pray, just be encouraged to continue, because God will show up.
Yes.
He will. And it surprised me in how many ways he will show up. Yeah. And I just encourage everybody to do that.
Great word. And we'll leave it there. Until next week, may God bless every step of every run. Go out there and shine your light.
Amen.
For more information about the Run for God ministry, go to runforgod.com. If you have questions about your salvation, click on the Peace with God tab. There's nothing more important. Thanks for joining us today.